I'm storyteller Tim Lowry, the sweet tea commentator from Summerville, South Carolina. We are considering the evidence for the birthplace of sweet tea. Summerville, South Carolina is the birthplace of sweet tea. You might say, birthplace of sweet tea. Come on now, y'all have gone and gotten above your raisin. Well, admittedly, it may be difficult, nearly impossible to trace the origins of such a southern icon to a single geographic location. Nonetheless, Summerville, South Carolina owns the trademark birthplace of sweet tea. You think, how'd y'all get that? Short answer, we thought of it before you did. Tea was first introduced to the North American continent in 1799 by Francois-André Michaux, a French botanist who brought tea plants to nearby Middleton Place plantation. He planted the variety known as Camellia sinensis. Tea is a camellia plant. You might be more familiar with the showy Camellia japonica or the Camellia sasanqua. I've always thought that if a family had 3 daughters, they could name them Japonica, Sasanqua, and sinensis. You might think that odd, but you could do worse. The Middletons had a daughter named Septima Sexta. Septima because she was the 7th child born, and Sexta because she was the 6th daughter. Septima Sexta. They called her Sexy for short. The historic record shows that in the early 19th century, a Dr. Smith planted a tea crop near Greenville, South Carolina. Unfortunately, he was shot to death. A couple decades later, a Dr. Forrester planted a tea crop near Georgetown, South Carolina, but he too came to an untimely end. He died when his buggy overturned fleeing highway robbers. My goodness, you might conclude that growing tea is much too hazardous to one's health. Maybe you ought to try some other cash crop, something safer like, I don't know, tobacco. As the saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, apply for government help. In 1880, the United States government leased 200 acres from the Middleton family, that's Sexy's people, for the cultivation of an experimental tea crop. Taking advantage of this government subsidy, a local chemist, Dr. Charles Shepard, took tea plants from that experiment and started Pinehurst, the first commercially viable tea farm in the United States of America. Now, about this time, there was an old soldiers' reunion in Summerville, South Carolina, and the soldiers ordered copious amounts of ice, tea, and sugar. Sparkling, crystallized, refined sugar. Now, undoubtedly, people all around America had been putting ice and sugar into their tea before this particular occasion, but this is a momentous time in American food history. From this point forward, sweet tea spread in popularity all across the country. Of course, there were debates about whether you should garnish with a sprig of mint or flavor with a spritz of lemon. But the old soldiers, having the Civil War and all of that strife fresh in their mind, they were able to lay all of those arguments aside by applying more sugar. Sparkling, crystallized, refined sugar. Unfortunately, in 1915, Dr. Charles Shepard died of natural causes, and the tea farm fell into disuse after a factory fire, and all of the plants went to pot. That's not what I meant. What I meant was the tea plants were just allowed to naturalize and continued growing on their own. That area of our town is now a subdivision called Tea Farm. Sits right next to the country club, and the only tea that you see there is the golf tea. I know that's a bad pun, but my friend made me put it in. Her name is Tina. Sweet girl, 95% crystallized, sparkling, refined sugar. In modern times, there was a new interest in the cultivation of tea. The tea plants from Summerville were transplanted to Wadmalaw Island, South Carolina, where there is now a growing enterprise known as the Charleston Tea Garden that produces a fine leaf that brews the best sweet tea you would ever hope to taste. And there you have it. Tea plants from 1799, an old soldiers' reunion, a large quantity of sugar, and the first commercially viable tea farm in North America. Upon this preponderance of evidence, Summerville, South Carolina is the birthplace of sweet tea.